Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. This time, we're going deep down to explore one of the most bizarre and fascinating creatures in the ocean. And you guys wanted to know more about this one, so we had to cover it.
Yeah, definitely a popular request. And yeah, you're not going to be disappointed. This one's really something else.
It is the Goblin Shark. I mean, just the name itself, Goblin Shark, tells you you're in for something weird, right?
Oh, yeah, you get a pretty good idea just from that, but then you actually see one, and it's like, wow, nature really went all out on this one.
It really did. So let's jump right in. First of all, that long protruding snout they've got, it's called a rostrum, right?
That's right, yeah, the rostrum, and then, of course, you can't talk about the Goblin Shark without mentioning the jaws.
Oh, yeah, the jaws. They're not just like regular shark jaws either. They actually shoot out to catch prey.
Exactly, and that's what we call slingshot feeding. What's so cool is that the Goblin Shark can actually launch its jaws forward almost 10% of its entire body length.
Whoa. 10%. That's like, it's like their face is a weapon. Yeah. What's the evolutionary advantage of that? Like, why develop such a crazy way to catch food?
Well, you gotta imagine the environment they live in, right? We're talking about the deep ocean here, hundreds or even thousands of meters below the surface. It's pitch black, the water is freezing cold, and food is scarce.
So basically the worst restaurant ever.
Pretty much. So in this kind of environment, you can't afford to waste energy chasing after prey. You need to be as efficient as possible, and that's where the slingshot jaws come in.
Okay, so how does that actually work?
So picture this. The Goblin Shark is just hanging out in the darkness, perfectly still conserving energy, then it senses something. Maybe a fish or a squid swimming nearby.
Using its super senses.
Exactly. We'll get to those in a minute. But anyway, the prey gets close enough and bam! The Goblin Shark's jaws shoot out with incredible speed. It's like a slingshot or a trap snapping shut. And at the same time, it creates this powerful suction that just pulls the prey right into its mouth.
Wow, so it's like a two-pronged attack, speed and suction. I bet there are some amazing videos of that online.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's one of those things you really have to see to believe.
Speaking of things you have to see to believe, another thing that really struck me about goblin sharks is their color.
They're what?
Oh, right.
They're pink. You don't usually picture sharks as being pink, do you?
Not really. And what's even weirder is that it's not even due to pigment. Their skin is actually so thin that you can see their blood vessels through it.
So it's literally their blood that's making them pink.
Yeah, pretty much. But it's not just a random quirk. There's actually a pretty good reason for it.
There is.
Yeah, it's thought to be a form of camouflage down in the deep sea. You see, red light doesn't penetrate that far down. So a goblin shark with its pinkish hue would actually blend in pretty well with the surrounding darkness.
Oh, that's really interesting. So it's invisible to both prey and predators.
Exactly. It's a great adaptation for their environment.
Very cool. Now, you mentioned super senses earlier. What's the deal with that? Oh, yeah, I was going to say, so remember that rostrum we talked about?
The big long nose thing?
Yep, that's the one. Well, it turns out it's covered in these tiny pores called ampullae of Lorenzini.
Ampullae of Lorenzini. That's a mouthful.
I know, right? But they're basically electroreceptors. They're filled with this special jelly-like substance that can detect the faint electrical fields generated by all living things.
So even in the pitch black, they can sense their prey. That's incredible.
It is. It's like a sixth sense that allows them to hunt even when they can't see or hear anything.
Amazing. It really is a perfectly adapted predator for its environment. All right, so we've got the goblin shark master hunter of the deep with its slingshot jaws and electric sense. But let's back up a bit and talk about names. I know its scientific name is Mitsukurinidae. Where does that come from?
Good question. Well, like a lot of scientific names, it's actually named after the people who discovered it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so Alan Austin was a British naturalist and collector. He acquired the first specimen back in the late 1800s. And then Kakichi Mitsuriki, a Japanese zoologist, was the first to scientifically describe the species.
Oh, cool. So they got to name this brand new, super weird shark. I'm kind of jealous.
I know, right? What a find.
It's interesting, though, because I understand it also has a Japanese name, Tenguzame, which paints a slightly different picture.
That's right. Tengu refers to a creature from Japanese folklore. It's kind of a mischievous, sometimes even demonic figure, often depicted with red skin and a long nose.
Sounds familiar. Huh.
It does, right? So it's really interesting to think about the different cultural perspectives on this creature. You know, one culture sees a goblin, the other sees a tengu. It really shows how our perceptions of nature can be shaped by our own backgrounds and beliefs.
It does. It makes you wonder what went through the minds of those first people who saw a goblin shark. Did they think it was a monster or a spirit or something else entirely?
I know, it just fires up the imagination.
It really does. So anyway, this goblin shark, or Tengu of the deep, what does it actually feed on?
Well, their diet mainly consists of deep-sea fish crustaceans and cephalopods, things like squid and octopus.
So your typical deep-sea fare, I guess.
Yeah.
And they don't really bother humans, right? Aside from the occasional undersea cable incident.
Yeah, they do have a bit of a reputation for biting those, but no, they're not known to be aggressive towards humans at all. Actually, their main interaction with us is, unfortunately, through deep-sea fishing practices, where they sometimes end up as bycatch.
Oh, right. I'd forgotten about that. And that brings us to their conservation status. They're currently listed as least concern, right?
That's right. But it's important to note that this classification is based on very limited data. We simply don't know enough about their population size distribution and the impact of things like deep-sea fishing to accurately assess their vulnerability.
So while the goblin shark isn't considered endangered right now, it's definitely a species we need to keep an eye on and make sure we're protecting.
Absolutely. It's a great reminder that even though we've explored so much of our planet, there are still vast areas like the deep sea that hold countless mysteries and amazing creatures that we're only just beginning to understand.
It really makes you wonder what else is out there lurking in the depths. Maybe some creatures even stranger than the goblin shark. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. I hope you learned something new, and if you want to see that incredible jaw-snapping action in slow motion, definitely check out some videos online. It's mind-blowing.
It really is, and thanks for having me. I always love talking about these amazing creatures.
Until next time, folks, keep exploring.